Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live brought to you by the Low Carb Lifestyle Hub. Very excited tonight to be doing this and broadcasting this across many channels. I am Tracey McBeath, and I'm a health and life coach, but I'm also the founder of the Low Carb Lifestyle Hub. So the hub is designed to just bring people access to information and also to practitioners to really help them on their low carb lifestyle journey. So whether you're watching this on replay or you haven't heard of the hub, please go to our website, lowcarblifestylehub.com, and you can sign up and become a member. So these lives happen every week in the hub membership, and they are interactive. I bring in lots of wonderful practitioners, doctors, GPs, dietitians, coaches, and other people in the low carb space, really helping people transform their health. I love these interviews. They're a lot of fun. And of course, being a part of the membership, you get to interact and to ask questions. But tonight, we're doing it across about 8 different channels. Hopefully you are going to come along. There'll be a few people coming up live. You are welcome to ask my guests any questions. Put it in the comments, and we'll answer those. We are meeting a lady tonight who I met for the first time in Brisbane on the weekend at a low carb retreat. Dr Nelum Dharmapriya is an amazing lady. I felt a connection with her straight away. I think she's doing incredible work in the low carb space, and you will love her. So I'm going to bring her in right now, and we're going to meet her. Hello.
Hi, Tracey.
It's lovely to have you here, and especially because we only met on the weekend and now we're doing this. So
It feels a little bit longer. I completely agree with you. I feel as if that I've known you for a little bit longer than just the weekend.
yes, I know it was lovely. So I'm glad you're here, and we all want to get to know you. And the question I always ask my guests to start with when you're introducing yourself and what you do, but how did low carb find you? What's your story there?
Yeah, well, low carb, yes, it definitely did find me. So, I'm a GP. I have been a GP for many years, 22 years, and practicing like a lot of GPs practice. I graduated from the UK, from Scotland, and just doing what I thought I was doing. I was doing the things that GPs do until I went through, going through menopause myself in my late 40s, early 50s. I found that I was really struggling. I was struggling with weight gain, particularly around my middle. And I was literally becoming my mother because she's apple shaped with lovely love handles, and that was me. So, and this was despite whatever I did, I kept on gaining weight. And then I slept really poorly, Tracey. I mean, I used to get up 3 to 4 times every night. I snored so badly. I snored like a pig, I say. I mean, I'm a poor husband. And the worst thing was the brain fog. That was the worst thing for me because I couldn't leave my workstation at work, my computer, without forgetting medical conditions, without forgetting medications. And it really terrified me that I would forget how to be a GP, a doctor. And I now look back and I see that I had so many little memory aids and memory joggers in and around my computer. And but the thing that really spurred me on to make some change was the fact that my blood test revealed that I was pre-diabetic and that I was heading towards a future of heart disease, and having a very strong family history of type 2 diabetes. My mum was diagnosed at the age of 52, and all her family have type 2 diabetes, and many of them died with diabetes related complications. I knew that I had to do. I really needed to look at what was going on. And, I was somebody who exercised like a maniac. I ran, I boxed, I did HIIT classes, and I ate well. I thought, I was definitely low fat. And so, but when these blood tests, when I realized this, and I was at the time I was about 52, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a GP. I tell other people, I advise other people on how to keep well, and here I am, in this position. And so I thought, well, I had to do something different. And but what, right? I mean, I was doing everything. Well, I thought I was doing everything. And then researching into, like, looking into this. And that's when I found I was reading and listening to podcasts and studying. Oh my gosh, I've really worked hard. And that's when I came across insulin. Insulin, its impact on metabolic health, on chronic disease, on weight. And it was like a revelation. For me, it was like, oh my gosh, and unfortunately, this is not how doctors are taught. We are not taught we know about insulin, but really most of us know about insulin in terms of type 2 diabetes, as a treatment for diabetes, rather than it's broad. It is such, insulin is responsible, or insulin resistance is responsible for every single non-infectious chronic disease. And I didn't know that. It hadn't really, I just simply didn't know it in that way. And knowing that, and knowing that the food that we were eating was toxic to our bodies, and that I had to really maybe eat a low carbohydrate diet to improve insulin levels and improve my metabolic health. That's what got me started. And really, Tracey, it was not easy. It was really not easy because, I grew up and I was born and raised in Sri Lanka. And we have amazing food in Sri Lanka, but it is all high carb. And so for me, it took me a whole month to get my head around it. And I was constantly like, well, I mean, what do I eat? Like, what was I going to eat? And how would I socialize with my family and friends if I wasn't eating what they were eating? So it was really, it took a while, but then I realized that nothing else was working. I had to do something. So that's when I started with, just little changes. And and that's how I got into this space, a personal experience. Yeah.
I think it's often that, isn't it? Really, I mean, it's mind-blowing when you see it, but then also mind-blowing when you think, now, why are we not taught? Why is not, this not taught as part of, what you learn in medicine? I mean, there's many reasons why not. And then, of course, as Ben Bickman says, and you said, insulin resistance is the cause of pretty much all the modern diseases we have out there. Like, it's so important to understand it and to manage it, and then to know that actually we can actually manage it with
absolutely
some quite simple changes.
I love Robert Lustig, who says that that if there is a metabolic dysfunction, there is a metabolic solution, and that is, it is foodable rather than druggable.
Yeah.
And I love it because it is just takes us back to simple, back to basic principles. And I think, that is so powerful.
It's powerful. And then when we start to make those changes and we start to feel it, we want to convert everybody and we want to tell everyone, but we know we really have to be ready to open ourselves up to seeing this. And I think, the biggest challenges that I see a lot of people face, and I'm interested in your perspective, because you mentioned the cultural, I guess, high carb diet and of your family. But it is that fact that we live in this world where, carbohydrates and sugar are everywhere. And then, of course, we're told, by still so many practitioners and the government and, to eat a low fat, high carbohydrate diet. But how did you navigate that, with the challenges that come? Because it is a problem. Well, it's an issue, I think, that a lot of people have to face. And I don't know that it's easy for people to navigate around it.
I think one of the key principles that has worked and works for me and works for my patients is so there are 4 principles that I use. One is whole food. First, eat whole food. Two is prioritize protein. And that is the secret, because when you prioritize protein, you are full. If you are full, you're not constantly craving carbs and sugars. So naturally, if you're prioritizing protein, you become low carb, because protein is in animal foods, which has less carbs. And then number 4 is not to fear healthy fats. So those are the 4 principles that I use. So it's not so much, you don't feel as if you're missing out, because you're full. You're full, and there's so many beautiful foods that you can have. And naturally, most people tend to manage with 2 meals a day, because you're actually pretty full with those 2 meals. So I think for me, it was gradually reducing the carbs and increasing the protein that really helped. And I think that is what I now stress to people that I work with, that is the key. If you increase your protein, you're not as much. It's that, because it's the cravings, isn't it, that drives you, the hunger that drives you. And if you're not hungry, and if then you've got a little bit more space. You're not constantly looking for things. So I think that's what's worked for me, and I know that it's working for my patients.
Yeah, absolutely. What did your family, what was the reaction of your family? Were they really supportive? Were they curious? Were they like,
Yeah,
what are you doing?
I know. And it's interesting, because over time what's happened is that I'm absolutely full with 2 meals. And for my dad, this is kind of, he cannot understand how I can manage with just 2 meals. But the rest of my family, my sister is really on board. My mum has increased her protein intake, which is excellent. And a lot of my Sri Lankan friends, and they have adopted this just by kind of seeing what I do, seeing the benefits it's given me, and a lot of my friends have adopted low carb and eating more protein. So it's been good. It's been
Rubbing
good.
off.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about the protein, particularly if there's a cultural or a belief about not wanting to eat animal foods? I love animal foods, and a lot of people watching, do as well. But there is
Yes.
definitely, at times when there may be someone that comes to see you. I just don't eat animal foods. So how do we navigate that? I mean, it must be a little bit trickier to get
It
the
is tricky.
protein.
It is
Yeah.
definitely tricky. Yes. So there are lots of plant foods that have protein in them, and good quality protein. There's a couple of things to say about that. So plant plant proteins, it's the soy and the quinoa. So let's go back a bit. Firstly, protein is made up of amino acids. These are the building blocks of protein, and 9 of those are what we call essential. Essential means that in nutrition, essential means that we need to get them from our food. Our bodies can't make them. And those 9 amino acids are present in all animal foods in the right quantities. In plant proteins, though, only quinoa and soy products have all the 9 amino acids in the right quantity. All other plant proteins have at least 1 amino acid missing. So it's really important, if you don't eat animal foods, that you know to mix and match, so that you actually get the right combination that you require every day. So that's one difficulty. Secondly, most plant proteins they are a little bit higher in carbs. So it's very, very difficult, if you're a vegetarian or vegan, to be very low carb, because you can't get your protein and also be low carb. It's quite difficult. So just that balance of knowing that. And if you if you have dairy products, that might be, you can have the protein with yogurts and cheese and things like that. There's a little bit there, but it is a little bit more difficult. It is doable, but I think really you need to know what you're doing, and you need to be able to understand how to mix and match so that you're getting what you need.
Absolutely. So with the work you do, I know that you talk. I've been looking through your Whole Foods. Whole Food Revolution is the page. That's right?
That's it. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep. So do you also have a clinic that you practice from, or are you?
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
a GP. I work 3 days a week. I do regular GP work, but this is my passion, metabolic health, and so Whole Food Revolution was created really just really because firstly so I founded Whole Food Revolution, and I work with two other women. So I work with two wonderful women, Deb Finucane and Ronit Barras. And Deb is a registered nurse, and Ronit is a life coach. So we kind of, I teach the science, Deb talks about the implementation of that science, what it looks like on a day to day, and Ronit talks about the mindset. So we have I feel like a complete, a holistic program that we can offer. And we enjoy working with each other. So that's what I do on the Facebook page and the community page, and also now on our website as well, which is brand new and I love it. But I work in North Brisbane, and I've been working at that practice at Narangba Doctors for the last 10 years. And I'm pretty busy at the moment with doing all of this stuff.
Know that you are, which is another reason why I'm really grateful that you're here. But I want to ask you about, I think I sense you're very passionate about working with, postmenopausal, perimenopausal, and
Postmenopausal. Really, it's anybody, really. I think
Yes.
everybody benefits from this. But having gone through my own personal experience and realizing that a lot of the patients I see are that kind of mid 40s to 60, mid 60s. That's who I see. Women. I see everybody, but that's who come to me predominantly. And realizing that they all have symptoms that what I went through, right? Just different variations of what I went through. So if it worked for me, that's what motivated me. If this worked for me, surely if I can share some of this information with them, it would work for them, and it has. And I'm just so incredibly grateful that I found this path, because it's not only helped me, it helps my patients. Because before I knew any of this, Tracey, my postmenopausal women, when they come to see me and complain, say, of weight gain, or I would just shake my head and say, it's tough. This is the way it is. We're postmenopausal. But I completely disagree with my old self that said that. It is definitely possible to go through menopause in a much more positive manner, and we can definitely lose weight and improve our health. And so many of my patients have proved that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need doctors like you, with these, options to give people. So what are the challenges? Like I've got a number of clients, that would fall into that category. And I see there's quite a few challenges, as opposed to possibly a man who was in their 30s, I think they've got a lot going for them. Yeah. What do you see overall as some of the biggest challenges for women in that sort of 50, menopausal age group?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is this age group, the stress. There's so much that if you think about a woman in her 50s, say 50s, there's so much going on. So there could be things like, they still could have, firstly, going through menopause itself is such a difficult physically what's happening in the body. They could still have children at home that they're worrying about, and elderly parents that they're worrying about. They could have relationship issues, body image issues, work, finance. There's so much stuff that women do take on at this time in their lives. So I think whatever we do in terms of diet, we have to, that's not sufficient if they're up to here in stress. Yeah, I think managing those stresses and recognizing them and giving tools, because you can't, there's no life without stress. I mean, that's an impossibility. But how do you manage that stress? What are your stress busters? And I talk about oxytocin. So cortisol is the stress hormone, and oxytocin is the one that controls the cortisol. So, what can you do to increase those oxytocin levels so that you can counteract it? So things like that. And then, other things like sleep. And sleep is this is another thing that women during this period of time really struggle with. And then really talking about, I think those are the two main ones: stress and sleep. And if we can really start, so you can't ever talk about metabolic health without talking about all of these. And then the other thing that I think is really important, not necessarily a struggle, but I think that we maybe don't concentrate as much on, is muscle building, strengthening exercises. Because I think, historically we have been told, cardio, run, jump, do all of this, but that exercise is not right for women over 45. That is too much of a stress on the body. So it needs to be a different type of exercise. And I think a lot of women don't know that. I still come across women who are doing, HIIT classes. And well, I was that woman. I ran a London marathon when I was in my late 30s. And in my head, I had to be jumping up and down to do exercise. And anything else was like, it didn't seem to be exercise for me. So I still come across a lot of women who have that same thought process. So I think,
do you think that's quite individual? Do you think that's if I mean, because for some women, that type of exercise is a mental, and a stress reliever. But do you think there's there has to be a balance between, too much? I do think that's the challenge, isn't it? How much is too much for you, and how much stress is it putting on your body?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. And I think if you're, what happened to me was, as I was heading into my 50s, I was still running these long distances. But what I was finding was that I was getting angry. I was irritable. I'd come back from my run. I'd sit on my chair, and I'd be and I realized that, I mean, what was this about, right? I go for my run as a relax, I enjoyed my running and all of that, but I realized it was just too much for me. So I had to then start bringing it back. So I think every woman has to kind of understand for herself. But I think there are lots of exercises now that don't require such high intensity, that is much kind of better for the postmenopausal body. Because I think we do kind of, there's so many, you probably have heard, Tracey, injuries that we sustain with these kind of high intensity, and it takes a lot longer to heal from those. So I think just rethinking. You can still do very good exercise, which is very good for you, particularly the strengthening, the core exercises, the balance exercises, functional strength training, so important. But whether you need to do as much high intensity, I very much doubt it. I think it can be a bit too much on the body.
I was wondering if I could take it back to the first. I've got one question about carb cycling, but I want to just ask you a question first about something that I see quite commonly, and I'm interested in whether you've seen this and what your thoughts are around it. But I tend to see a lot of women over 50 who actually undereat, and they particularly undereat protein, and they are actually not, so they're not losing weight. They're trying low carb, but overall they're really still under eating, and even so much that they wake up in the morning and they're just not hungry, which I know for a lot of people in the low carb space that's a great thing, but for this group of people I'm not sure if it is. And I'm really interested in your thoughts, whether you see that as a common thing, if there's something, you know, if it's a metabolism issue or.
I think somehow we've been led to believe that as we get older, we require less protein. You know, our older population eat very little protein. So I think that's I think that's just a cultural thing as well, that somehow, you know, and all this myth around red meat and all of that. So I think generally people have cut out a little bit of meat over time, you know, animal proteins. But yeah, I do think, I mean, one of the things that I've really found is that a lot of women do undereat, because it's this concept of calories, right? So the less you eat, surely the more weight you will lose. But that is not the way it works. And the eat less, move more simply doesn't work. We know that. We've known that for years. But because there isn't an alternative given, that's all we seem to kind of let. So a lot of practitioners just kind of are stuck in that. But yeah, I mean, I think the key thing, if you eat adequate protein, you actually don't need to eat too much, Tracy, because have you heard of the protein leverage hypothesis? Have you heard of that? Yeah. So that's right. So if you're, because a lot of the animal foods or animal proteins not tend to have not just the protein, but many of the nutrients that we need. So if you're eating mostly animal proteins, then you tend to fulfill the nutritional requirements quite early. So then you don't need to keep eating, because one of the reasons, as a biological being, one of the reasons that we eat is to kind of get the nutrition that we require. So if you then meet those nutritional requirements, then you might not need to eat much more. But then that person should be metabolically pretty healthy if they're eating like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think it's a complex thing. It's often the fact that too, so you mentioned the importance of muscle. You know, we lose that as we age, you know, and a lot of women don't do strength training, and
No,
you know,
that's right.
people, a lot of, you know, sedentary stuff. So I think it is a combination of things around that, and the stress obviously being a big one. I'm just going to ask you this question. It says, I'm perimenopausal and wondering if it is beneficial to carb cycle, or is it not necessary?
No, there is no, actually. So what happens in peri postmenopause is that as women lose their estrogen, women tend to become more insulin resistant, and the best way to manage insulin resistance is on a low carb eating plan. So that could be anything. I mean, keto fits into that, but what I find with keto is that it does tend to be quite difficult to sustain. So I tend to kind of be more low carb. I don't recommend measuring or calorie counting or any of that. Just knowing what to eat, the low carb foods, is what I recommend. So really, and the other thing that really benefits this age group is fasting, because that reduces the insulin levels even further. So low carb, I really don't think carb cycling. Well, there isn't any benefit, I don't think, to carb cycling, because carbs are not essential to humans. I think low carb, not no carb. It's not no carb. It's low carb, and fasting. Those are the two things.
So with fasting, any contraindications for women in that? You know, I mean, I know there's lots of age groups, you know, watching this. So any contraindications?
Okay. So really, I would definitely kids and pregnant women, breastfeeding women should keep away from, and the elderly, frail elderly should not be fasting. And anybody who has been diagnosed with an eating disorder or has disordered eating, I think, you know, fasting can trigger these symptoms. So I think you can fast, but it has to be done with the support of a doctor or a therapist, I think. But for postmenopausal women, fasting is pre and post, it's excellent. a really good tool to be using.
Okay, awesome. I would really love to talk to you firstly about that oxytocin. So tell me,
Yes.
tell me what some of the things we can do to increase that oxytocin.
Oh, the favorite one, my favorite one is deep, meaningful conversations with your girlfriends.
Oh, love
Yes,
that.
I think, yeah. And then there's a lot. So it's things like, hugs from people you love, or just hugs. Hugging your pet gives you oxytocin. Okay. Being out in nature, journaling, gratitude, feeling joyful, all these, things that we already know, all right, but somehow don't seem to do. But things like that, things that give us joy, things that really makes us feel cared for. So those are things that would increase oxytocin levels.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I don't have a pet. I have too many children, but
You should hug them.
I
Ronnie
do.
says yes. I think is it 16 hugs a day? That's what you
Nice.
need. And you can get that
Okay.
easily, Tracey.
Yes,
Yes.
I can. I can, and I do follow a few very on Instagram, some dog pages that give me little oxytocin boosts every morning because they're very cute. These little smiling dogs.
Yeah.
But see, little things, and you're right. We do know, and this is the essence of the work I do. Is kind of we've got to remember. So I'd love to know your perspective because you've talked about obviously stress as in being, management of stress, sleep, obviously what we eat, muscle, to sometimes we go, oh my gosh, there is just so much we have to do. And, we change that to we want to do that because we want to look
Yes.
after ourselves. But how do you manage things? I mean, you're obviously a very busy lady with so much going on. And yes, stress is unavoidable, but how do you, I'd love your insight
Yes.
on how
Well,
you manage that.
the one thing that I didn't mention that's massive up there is meditation. And I feel that is how I do it, because I have a daily habit of meditating as much as I can. Sorry, that's not the word. As many days that I can. It doesn't work all the time, but that really gives me. It's only 20 minutes, but 20 minutes of calm, I think, is really at the beginning of the day, really, really gets me on to a good start. And I think also the other thing, Tracy, for me is gratitude. I think, that's something that I highly value. And I just sometimes, even driving in the car, I say to myself, how lucky am I mean, how grateful I am for being, firstly in this beautiful country in Brisbane. That's, the weather's always beautiful. And just for the work that I do, and all the little things that you can be grateful for. And I think there's always something you can be grateful for, and that just gives you a little bit of I don't know, it just makes you feel a little bit lighter somehow. But it is interesting, I've always prided myself that I can manage the stresses and the busyness, that I can manage it. But recently, in the last few months, getting this whole food revolution, the website running, and all the little things that you have to do when you're kind of setting up a business. I was rush all the time. And I went to see my GP to get some blood tests, and my blood pressure was really high. I've never had a high blood pressure. And I thought to myself, gosh, like, why is this? And I realized it was all the rushing, this just constant to-do list of things like tick, 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 tick. And luckily, I was off every year I go for a 9-day meditation retreat. That was coming up. So I go to Western Australia. It's a silent retreat. It's amazing.
Wow.
So I went and I came back and I put my phone, I actually hid my phone inside my suitcase and locked it so that I had no access to anything.
Did you get something in it? Try that
And
today.
that was so good because it just
Amazing.
forced me to just
Mm,
let it all go. And then
yeah.
since I've come back, there is no more high blood pressure. I think, but it was a really good lesson for me that sometimes women we think we can do it all, and we
Mm,
can, but I think it's at a cost. So you need to, I think, that awareness. And for me, I obviously wasn't aware because I was rush, 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 rush. So I think just to take it slow. So at the meditation retreat, I realized, everybody's zen like and walking very slowly and very calmly. And here I am rushing around. And I had to tell myself every time I left the room, Nelum, slow down. So it took a whole 9 days for me to get it into my head that I had to slow down. But it
wow.
worked. And I feel as if I'm not rushing as much.
Yeah.
But
I love that.
yes.
I love it. I think it's something that we can all, increase our awareness of and become aware of this, this need to be in a hurry all the time, get done, done, done,
Yeah,
do, do, do. I mean, you see it on the roads all the
absolutely.
time. And yeah, I mean, when I'm aware of it, I tend to slow down. One of the things I've realized is that, the more I need to do, the slower I need to get.
Yeah.
And actually, the more time I need to make to do those morning practices that have changed my life as well. Such simple
Yes.
things, but in those times, I do remember what's important to me, and just remember the presence and the opportunity that I have to show up to today. And I mean, I would never ever have done something like that, in my early 40s. I'm nearly 50 now. And I don't know, is it the age that we start to become really aware of all of this? I'm not sure, but I think it is, awareness is everything. And we can, you know, just know that I think when we are rushing, that's when we tend to, I don't know, we pile it all in. And do we necessarily see everything we need to see? Do we make the decisions we want to make? We tend to be, well, I get very reactive. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And we feel that like we're a tight, wound up, clock.
Yeah. Because you constantly, it's like this little tick box, like I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Yeah, I think and I think as a society
Mm,
we pay a lot of attention to our bodies, but we don't pay as much attention to our mind. And I think that
yes.
is where I think where we could improve. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to learn there.
Yeah. And that badge of just, that busy badge, I think we can all kind of take that off too and see, that it's not really, we will get things done, like,
Yeah,
letting go of,
absolutely.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, look, it's been such a lovely conversation. There's a couple of, do you like, what type of curry do you like to eat? And
Well,
I don't know, is that with or without rice now? Do you do it? Obviously with
now,
rice.
okay, so that was very interesting. So, firstly, if you haven't had Sri Lankan food, you should try it. It is
Yeah.
different to Indian and Thai. It is
Yeah.
the taste, and in England, apparently, it is now the most the favorite. So it has replaced Indian for the favorite food.
Really?
Yes, it is
Oh,
very tasty, and we can curry anything, any vegetable, any fruit we can eat. So curry, it is, well, my parents cook authentic Sri Lankan food, and it is very tasty. So any of the meats, um dal, anything, I mean, it's really tasty. So eating it with so what I do now is I have it with cauliflower rice.
okay.
um and but Tracy, I recently got a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor,
Mm,
and I thought, well, that's the first time. So I've never tried one before, and I thought, right, I'm going to really try all kinds of different things. And it was my husband and I, we, our anniversary recently, and we decided we would treat ourselves and have our favorite Indian. So we got, the naan, the rice, the curry, everything. And what was so interesting was that my blood glucose levels went from 5.1 pre-meal, it rose to 9.5, and it took 4 hours to come down to baseline. Right.
wow,
And
wow.
then my younger son, he's just left to go to the UK, and he wanted a curry before he left. So we did it again, and exactly the same happened. So that's really sobering, because this is what I ate. This is what we ate: rice and curry and roti and various things. And if it takes 4 hours for that giant mountain to come down, imagine what it is probably doing to insulin levels. So that was a real, I mean, yeah, it's just that it was very interesting to see that.
Yeah, I think with that sort of information, we tend to sort of question those little things as being treats, and it starts to look,
exactly.
a little different. Like, isn't it? It's a treat when it does that to our body. It's like, maybe not.
I
Maybe a
know,
nice steak
that's right.
or
Yes, definitely. And when I'm eating low carb, it's lovely, and kind of just
right.
the little hillocks rather than these huge mountains. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that CGM experiment before, like I think around they first came out, maybe 3 years ago. It was pre-COVID. But I did a few days of eating how I used to eat, but I couldn't last. I thought I'd try and do a week. I couldn't. I was so hungry and tired and grumpy, and my my oats, because I used to have oats every morning for breakfast with low-fat yogurt. And what else did I have on it? I think I used to put honey and sultanas on it, but I forgot when I was doing the experiment. So it's just the oats and the milk and a bit of yogurt, and my blood sugar went over to up to 11. Like literally, I'm watching it just go,
and it would
boom.
have just gone up. Yes.
Yeah, just it was so bad. And then I watched it come down, but didn't stay up. It came down pretty quickly. But I felt so sick. I'm just watching this drop, and we talk about that blood sugar roll. I mean, that's exactly what it is, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I think if you have the opportunity to get a CGM and try it out, I think it's great. It just gives you so much information.
And I'm going to put in a little plug, because the hub is giving one away, because I bought 2.
Yes,
so I thought in Australia only, unfortunately, but any new members that join in July, you can go into it for a chance to win one. I think it is invaluable information to see what's going on in your body when we eat these foods.
Yes.
I would love to wrap it up, Dr. Nelum, with, well, tell us what you're doing. Tell us what exciting things are coming up for you that, people who might be watching might want to get involved in for a start. And then I want you to just finish it with, just some final words of wisdom.
Okay. So thank you, Tracey. So there's lots going on. So one of the things that I started doing a metabolic health clinic where I work at Narangba, but what I realized was it took me such a lot of time, and I just didn't have that time to do it one-to-one with patients, because it was 45-minute appointments, 8 sessions. I just didn't have the time. So then I started doing workshops, one-day workshops, where I would teach the science, and Deb and Ronit will do their bit as well. And they still go on. We have one every 3 months. We have a one-day workshop where we cook all the food, because we want to show that this food is easy to make and tasty, and we have a lot of fun. But now next week I'm so proud of this, that we are launching a 4-month online program. So it's 4 months, because it takes at least 3 to 6 months for a behavior change to happen. And this program is all to do with metabolic health, from food to fasting to chronic inflammation, gut health, stress, sleep, exercise, the whole thing. And so I talk about the science, Deb the practical stuff, and Roni talks about the mindset. So we're really excited about that. So it's starting up next Wednesday on the 26th of July, and it's every week for 16 weeks. So that's very, very, I'm really excited about that, because I feel that's a really, and it's taken a lot of work behind the scenes, but we're excited about launching that. And then the other thing that I do, Tracey, is that I also am very, very passionate about teaching other GPs and sharing my knowledge with other GPs. And we did run early on this year, we ran a low carb made easy for primary health physicians in March, and we had 14 GPs 14 practitioners. 2 were health just allied, they were allied health professionals who came along, and it was great. We had the best time, and it was great to be able to share some of our knowledge. And so we're running another one in October. So I think that's good too, because I feel that GPs are central and crucial to actually spreading this message. And so if I can share what I've learned with my GP colleagues, I think I can only do so much. And so if I can share this knowledge with even one other doctor, they can spread this word to all their patients, and it goes on from there. So yeah,
and that's
so
all on your website. So
it's all on my website.
Whole Food Revolution. So I'm going to go around to all the groups and the pages and all wherever this is going live, and I'm going to put it in the comments to make it easy. It's I think in the blurb in the introduction anyway, but when we posted this.
Yes.
But yes, please make sure you go there if you're interested. And why wouldn't you be? If I would be.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
So no, and that's what it's been an incredibly busy year, but it's been great. I've loved every minute of it, and let's see where this takes us in the future.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot of people saying how wonderful you are. What an interesting chat. Wonderful spirited lady you are. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. It's been wonderful. But final words of wisdom.
Okay. This is such an easy what I would like to really say is that this is just simple back to basic stuff. And the 4 principles, I think that if you can remember: whole food, prioritize protein, low carb, and not to fear fat. If you start with those, I think it will make a huge difference. I think that's all you've got to do. Go back to the way that we ate, 100 years ago. I think that's what we need to be doing.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And thank you everybody for watching across the platforms, whether it's now, live, or later. Please sign up to the Hub, follow Dr. Nelum, of course, and sign up to her programs as well. So thank you everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Bye everyone.
Bye.